Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this breakfast session. My name's Stuart Dinmore. I'm from the University of South Australia's Teaching Innovation Unit, and we're absolutely thrilled to have Professor Danny Liu from the University of Sydney with us today. Judging by the amount of interest in this session, Danny's either incredibly popular guy.
Good morning.
Can you please mute? Thank you. And his topic is also incredibly relevant and important to the sector. So before we start the session with Danny, I'd like to acknowledge the land on which we meet today. I'm in Adelaide, so this is the land of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and I'd like to acknowledge that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. Excuse me. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the Adelaide region, and their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. So thank you from Adelaide, and I'd like to acknowledge the land from which you are meeting today, wherever you happen to be in Australia. And for those of you from overseas, a huge welcome to you, and thanks very much for coming along. So a little bit of housekeeping. Please keep your microphones muted, and there's a Q&A box there which is separate to the chat, so keep the chat going. That's fantastic. The Q&A is where obviously you can post questions. With this huge number of people, I apologize in advance, we might not be able to get to all of your questions, but excuse me, there is an opportunity for you to upvote for questions that you'd like Danny to respond to, so please engage with the Q&A. So without further ado, I'd love to hand over to Danny, and thank you very much for being there, Danny. We're thrilled to have you with us.
Thanks so much, Stuart, for the invitation, and also to TRU for this opportunity to share today as well. I'm coming to you from the lands of the Darramaragal people. I want to pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and also kia ora to those people from Aotearoa as well joining us this morning, or morning still for you. So this morning I'm going to share a little bit about, some approaches to AI that we've found useful and informative for us at Sydney. So I'm just going to take over Stuart's screen and start my PowerPoint up. Okay, so AI is obviously this thing that's been going on for many years, and especially in the last 18 months has taken, higher education by surprise a little bit, and we're still kind of in the reactionary phase. But like Stuart was saying, and has been saying, the conversation seems to have moved a bit to now not so much fear anymore of it, but kind of, what do we do with it now that it's kind of here? And so I want to share a few thoughts around that. Neil Leach he did a radio interview with the ABC a couple of months ago, and he's an architect, and he mentioned that when he was studying in Cambridge in the late 80s, they were banned from using computers in the architecture studio. Okay, and what this did basically for the architecture discipline was that it produced a generation of graduates who were basically unemployable because clients demanded that architects use computing technologies because it guaranteed a return on investment and actually promoted and optimized possibilities of architecture design. Okay, so the thought is, are we doing the same thing? How are we approaching this with AI? Obviously, the very big thing that is taking up most of our attention right now is kind of assessment, and that's the thing that we all want to pretend is not a problem, but really is a problem. I've got two videos to show you on this slide. One doesn't have sound, and the other one does have sound, so I'll make sure that I am sharing my computer sound. So this very first video is a TikTok from, I think, last year sometime, and this shows a Canvas plugin, or rather a browser plugin, and you can see what the browser plugin is doing. It's called Coursology. You can enable it, and then when you go through your Canvas quiz, you can press the big Coursology button next to each of the questions. It uses AI to give you 14 out of 14. Okay, so these plugins have been available for many, many months, and students, use them, and there's no real way for us to tell if they use them. This other video here is a more recent one from Twitter, and this is a product still in development. It's called AI Apply, so it's not openly available yet, but it's a bit interesting what this product allows you to do. I'm just going to play that one as well. This one has a bit of sound.
Hi, Aidan, how are you? Where are you calling from today? I'm doing great, thanks, and I'm in London. I've been looking forward to discussing this opportunity with you today.
Great stuff. If it's okay with you, I'd like to dive straight into it. Can you tell me about a product that you've launched that you're proud of and why?
Oops, sorry, let me
Certainly.
pause.
One of the products I'm most proud of is a mobile app that we designed to streamline online shopping for customers. It integrated AI-driven recommendations and a highly intuitive UI.
Okay, so that is obviously an AI avatar doing an interview online for somebody. And so it's interesting to think about what is safe from AI and what is not safe from AI. And basically nothing is really safe from AI. One of the most useful words to use with AI these days is the word yet. When people say AI can't do this, it's important to add the word yet at the end of it. AI can't do it yet. It's only a matter of time. And that video interview avatar bot thing that we just saw on the right is just one of those things that wasn't possible 6 months ago, but now is possible, okay, and will be increasingly possible as AI improves. And so the big question for us is, are students learning anything? If students can do this, if they do this, are they actually attaining learning outcomes? Now, one of the things that we put in place at Sydney beginning of this year is that in our curriculum management system, we basically asked academics for every single assessment item in the university to specify two things around AI. One was whether generative AI was actually allowed, and the second one was whether it was a secured or unsecured assessment, or whether they had not had time to think about it yet. And that was perfectly fine, okay, because everyone is busy, we recognize that, and dealing with AI is an immense task and a challenge. And so it's perfectly fine for people to say not considered. And so based on this data, this represents 11,000 assessments from semester 1 at Sydney University. I've removed the numbers here to be a bit safer for us, but the heat map kind of shows you where the intensity lies. And the two columns that scare me the most about this table is, one of them is this one. This is where people have said, my assessment is not secured. Okay, so it's either not invigilated or I don't have a way to kind of know that it's a student doing their own work. Okay, and they've also said AI is not allowed. Okay, a lot of assignments sit here, a lot of online tasks sit here. Okay, and this is a very dangerous place to sit. And here we also have a slightly less scary column, which is people who haven't had a chance to consider it yet. And also they're saying that AI isn't allowed in their assignments. Okay, so it's also a scary one, but not as scary as the unsecured AI not allowed. And both of these are problematic because both of these, you don't know it's the student doing their own work. Okay, and so ideas like this have caused people around the world to kind of think about what do we do? And obviously TEXA came around with Jason Lodge at the helm and Helen McNeil as well, thinking about how we can actually respond to the challenge of AI in assessment. And so TEXA put out this really, really nice piece of guidance in November last year. And they've got two principles as part of this guidance. The first principle is basically accepting that AI is pervading society, and we need to prepare and equip students for this society. Okay, and as part of that, assessment might need to have authentic engagement with AI. The second principle in this is basically that trustworthy judgments still need to be made about students' abilities. Okay, and so we need to have assessment that can actually help us confirm these abilities in students. And so this might be at the program level, it might assess the process of learning as opposed to the product, but the idea is that it needs to be trustworthy and inclusive assessment. So the challenge for us is, well, how on earth do we do this when we have AI that can answer Canvas quizzes for us on the LMS just by click of a button, and AI which can take online interviews, and obviously AI which can write text almost as good and sometimes better than many humans can. And AI like that is coming out every single week, okay? And better AI is coming out every single week. And so what we're thinking about at Sydney is that we need to not look into the short-term future. We need to look into the long-term future. We can't kind of say AI can't do this particular assessment because it's AI can't do that assessment yet. And so if we look long horizon, the only kind of place that you can kind of end up with assessment is that you either fully allow AI or you don't allow AI, or rather you have assessments which embrace AI, and then you have assessments which are secured. Okay, which may involve AI, but most of the time probably don't involve AI use. And so that kind of, and apologies if you've heard me bang on about this before, but this is kind of the basis of our two-lane approach to assessment. And the idea is that you have lane 2, which is where you have genuine AI-human collaboration. We scaffold students' use of AI, support them to use it, allow them to use it, and help them to use it better. And so in the short term, this might look like, using AI to get, helping students using AI to help them perform some research, summarize things, draft some things, brainstorm, critical friend, collaborate with the AI. In the long term, this might mean something like we move to a place where we assess the process more than the product, because after all, we don't really care if 1,000 students, we don't care about 1,000 essays about Shakespeare, but we care about 1,000 students learning how to analyze Shakespeare. Okay, so that process of analysis, process of learning is the important thing that we want to harness and assess and develop as part of these lane 2 assessments alongside AI. But obviously, we still need to know that students know what they know. And this is where lane 1 comes in. This is where we have, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on which camp you come from, tests and exams. Okay, viva voces, interactive oral assessments, and these kind of things where it's the student. Most likely, lane 1 is no AI, and you can be sure it's no AI because it's a student there in front of you. Okay, we're trying interactive oral assessments at Sydney University this year after some great conversations we've had with colleagues from Griffith University. So we're quite excited about that. But thinking about how we can actually have these kind of two-lane approach to assessment. These 2 lanes kind of follow Texas. It's kind of the other way around, but it's Texas Principle 1 and Principle 2 in terms of authentic engagement with AI on the right, and then also assurance of achievement on the left. Now, an example of a 2-lane approach is for this particular marketing unit. Students might need to apply some marketing strategies and concepts into real-world scenarios. Okay, so a lane 2 assessment in this might be get students to use Copilot, Microsoft Copilot Chat, to do some market analysis, because Copilot is connected to the internet and therefore it can help students do the search and analysis. And then maybe if you're an Adobe institution, you can get them to use Firefly to actually assist them with campaign design. And then this whole process of working alongside the AI, injecting the student's own critical thought is documented, and that process is what is assessed. And maybe students do a presentation at the end of it just so that they have a goal in mind. But at the same time, we need to kind of make sure that students actually know how to apply marketing strategy concepts and communicate and evaluate effectiveness. And we know that the students know how to do this apart from AI. They know it themselves. And so we might run a live question and answer after the presentation in class, where it's a mock board presentation, for example, and then the students then have to answer questions from the board. And then this is an authentic scenario, which is kind of dynamic, allows the students to extend and synthesize what they know as part of that kind of more secured lane 1 assessment. Now, another example of this 2-lane approach is thinking not so much in an individual unit or in an individual assessment type, but rather across a program. I teach into the Graduate Certificate in Educational Studies. It's a fairly concise program. It only has 4 units of study. And so this is not the same as a lot of more complex programs like arts and science, those kind of things. But as a little microcosm model, this is what we're doing this year for the grad cert. For these 4 units of study, we have most assessments, which are lane 2 assessments. This is where we've basically said to students, go nuts. AI is there. These are the tools that are available. We're going to give you access to some of these tools. What you need to make sure that you do as a student is 3 things, or a few things. You need to make sure that you own the work, as in you're responsible entirely for the work that you submit. The second thing is you need to acknowledge how you've used AI. And the third thing is you can't just copy and paste from the AI. Okay? As long as they follow those kind of 3 rules, they're welcome to use any AI. And what we do is we scaffold and support and provide access to some of these AIs for them to use. But obviously, we can't let them lead the program without confirming their knowledge and skills. And so we still have at 2 kind of key capstone moments in the program. We have lane 1 assessments. And so these are hurdle tasks, which means they must pass these 2 assessments. Okay, and these hurdle tasks are interactive oral assessments, and one is running next week, actually. And so what's happening with these hurdle lane 1 tasks is students will be assessed on the program learning outcomes through a concise and effective rubric, and they'll have a conversation, a genuine conversation with their teachers in an authentic kind of setting in order to demonstrate their knowledge and ability through the learning outcomes. Okay. So that's 2 examples of 2-lane approaches at a program level as well as at a unit or assessment level. So the whole point of thinking about this way is that really what we're out to do as universities, we're out to develop students' contemporary capabilities. Okay. An example, got 4 apps on the screen, or 4 icons of apps on the screen here: Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote. Which app would you use to create a balance sheet for an annual report? Okay. When we ask students to do this in an assessment, for example, do we tell students, you can't use some things and you can use some things? We're going to red light them. Okay, we're going to red light PowerPoint, we're going to red light OneNote, we're going to green light Excel, we're going to orange light Word. Okay, we don't do that, do we? Instead, what we do is we say to students, yeah, okay, you've got these tools available to you, but we're going to help you understand which one is better to use and which one is not so good to use. Don't use PowerPoint for tables because it can't do calculations. Use Excel for tables. Okay, don't use Excel for formatting because you could do better formatting in PowerPoint or Word. And so the idea behind this is that, we know that students already have these non-AI tools out there, and we don't restrict or red light or green light or orange light or yellow light their use, but instead we actually help them to learn productive and responsible ways to use these tools. AI is out there. Students have access to these AIs. We should probably treat AI in a similar way to this. Okay, so this next slide, which app would you use to get a summary of key literature around a topic? Okay, these are 3 of these AI tools. Okay, one of them is not, Google Scholar is not. For these, the same question applies. Do we go ahead and restrict their use? And we say, no, red light Claude, red light ChatGPT, but you're okay to use Google Scholar and you're okay to use Elicit maybe in some situations. Okay, there is no way to really red light or orange light any of this stuff because students are going to use it and we can't stop them from using it. We can't detect their use either. Okay, so a better way to approach it instead of traffic lights is to actually say, well, we're going to help you. We know you're going to have these tools available for you. We know that you may not know which tool is the best, but we're going to help you learn productive and responsible ways to engage with these tools. And in order to help us do that at the University of Sydney, the way that we're approaching it, thinking about it, is through this thing called an assessment menu. It's that time. I might tell a brief story. We went to and apologies again if you've heard this silly story of mine. We went to a Disney cruise earlier this year, and on the Disney cruise, what happens is that every night you dine in a different restaurant. But even though your restaurant dining experience is different, the waiter team that follows you around is the same, and so they call this person the server. And our server was a guy called Wayan, who comes from Indonesia. And the reason why I remember Wayan so clearly is because he got to know us as a family. He got to know our preferences, our needs. He knew the menu back to front, and so he could really well connect what was on the menu with what we needed and what was fresh at the time, and our dietary requirements and those kind of things. Okay. In a similar way, as educators, we're kind of like Wayan. We know our assessments, we know our students, and we're starting to learn about AI. And so we, just like Wayan, we're in a perfect position to connect those dots together to say, okay, for assessment 1, I know that this assessment needs to develop your abilities to critically think and analyze literature. Okay, therefore, I know that the things that you need to develop are these things, and therefore I know that these are the AI tools on the menu or AI approaches on the menu which are most productive and responsible for you to use. So the menu looks a bit like this for now. It's a very short menu compared to the Disney cruise menu. But what this is doing is basically saying, okay, there are lots of different ways to use AI, lots of different AI tools available, okay? Students are going to have these available to them, and we're not going to be able to stop them from using it or tell that they are using it. And so instead of saying red light, green light, orange light, yellow light, what we're thinking is, okay, we're just going to say, you've got these tools available, we're going to help you. This menu will help you think about good and bad ways to use AI. Okay, so for example, for assessment 1, maybe it's more useful to have 1 soup, 1 entree, and 1 coffee. Okay, for assessment 2, have a main and also 3 desserts. For assessment 3, go for 5 desserts. Okay, and the idea behind this is saying that we will help our students learn different ways to use AI, learn different ways to use different AI tools for different purposes. Okay, not to restrict them to use it, but to show them that there are some smarter, better ways to use AI and some less smart and less good ways to use AI. So in order to support things like this, we have an upcoming policy change. And the upcoming policy change, which is going to be in effect in semester 2, we think, is something like this, basically. Lane 1 assessments will either have AI allowed or AI not allowed. Okay, they're going to be secured. It could be exams and tests because some accrediting bodies need that, and some academics, it speaks to them. But most of the time, we're trying to move people away from exams and tests towards more authentic forms of secured Lane 1 assessment. And in the Lane 2 assessment category, what we have is Lane 2 assessment is basically AI allowed. Okay, it's not going to be permitted to have a Lane 2 assessment where AI is not allowed because it's impossible to do that. Okay, so as part of policy, we're going to say an unsecured assessment, a Lane 2 assessment, unsecured, you have to allow AI. Okay, and as part of that, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, well, we've got a lot to learn together as a community. We need to quickly upskill ourselves and our students so that we can help each other to scaffold and support this productive and responsible use of AI. Okay. All right, so that's the assessment piece. Hopefully that was partly useful. The other thing that we're thinking about is, okay, in addition to curriculum and assessment design, what else can we do with AI? We've talked about different ways to use AI as part of that menu, but what else is possible in the AI space? And I like going back to this SAMR model, substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition, because I personally find it's a useful way to think about how we use EdTech and also how we use AI these days as well. So in terms of AI and this particular model, we can think about substitution. Substitution is where you kind of do something that you currently do, but you just substitute some technology into it. Okay, so for example, right now, maybe you have teachers giving feedback. We all give feedback to our students. Maybe in the future with AI, one way to incorporate this is just for students to then ask the AI for feedback before they ask us for feedback. Okay, so it's substituting a little bit of our work, not all of our work, a little bit of our work with AI. Augmentation, this is doing something a little bit more differently. So maybe right now students get these static practice questions from the textbook, but in the future maybe students can get these AI generated question sets with feedback from the AI, and the AI can adapt the difficulty depending on where the student's at. Modification, maybe right now we have students in class going through a written case study, but wouldn't it be great if the students could actually interact with the person in your case study or the company or the group that is in your case study? And then you can build an AI which can allow students to actually interact with that live as opposed to just read a case study on paper. And redefinition is what new things can we do? Okay, so maybe it's a guided client interaction where the AI pretends to be a particular client, and AI can talk to the student, take that role, and then give the student feedback or something on this. So thinking about different ways that we can actually use AI to support learning through this SAMR model. And so one question that we often ask our educators is, we've been building a tool at the University of Sydney which allows educators to build an AI double of themselves. So I want to ask you this question, and I realize that there's 290 of us on the Zoom today, so this might get a bit hectic. I should have thought of a different way to do this. But if you could type into the Zoom chat, and this might explode, but type into the Zoom chat the answer to this question. If every student of yours had a version of you available to them 24/7, what would you tell that version of you or that clone of you to do? Okay, I'm going to tab out of my PowerPoint so I can hopefully capture a few ideas on the PowerPoint. Okay, so send them through Zoom chat. Okay, so we've got ideas of consistency, basics of all the questions. Okay, so answer all the questions. Personalized support. Perfect. Be humble. Oh, amazing. Okay, ask questions. Okay, ask questions. Critical. Oh, critical. I can't see and type at the same time. Okay, identify support needs, Socratic questioning, authenticity, amazing ideas. I'm gonna save the Zoom chat so I can go through this. Just go through this later. I should have done a Padlet for this instead. Wasn't expecting so many people. Dig deep. Okay, dig deeper. Keep questioning. Teach them how to communicate. Okay, yep. So communication, feedback. Clarify, redirect. Okay, clarify and redirect. Excellent. Any others? Identify knowledge gaps. Okay, identify knowledge gaps. Listen and connect. Okay, pair students with, yeah, okay. Understand. Okay, key concept. All right, fantastic. Invite searching, tell them good jokes to relate. Okay, so support mental health. It's an interesting one. Good, and you matter. Okay. All right, let me just fix up the spelling here, and I'll move on a bit. Thank you for all your ideas. Keep them coming through if you're still in the Zoom chat. I'll definitely save this chat because it's a gold mine of great ideas. Okay, so the things that we've suggested here are really interesting things that we would do as a teacher, but wouldn't it be great to get a bit of support on all these? The support doesn't need to replace you and shouldn't replace you, but it's the best available version of you because you're not available to students 24/7, right? And neither should you be. So if we think about these kinds of things, then we have to think about, well, what kinds of tools can we use in order to leverage AI in order to actually give students this kind of double of ourselves? And one of the, and yeah, Michelle's perfect right. I often need two of me. We often need 100 of us if we're teaching a class of 100 students, don't we? And so the tool that we've developed at the University of Sydney is called Cogniti, and I'll show you a couple of examples which kind of align with the ideas that we've got here. Maybe I might show you a communication feedback one because I just developed one yesterday for somebody there. And maybe we'll do one for, I might show you one for maybe key concept unpacking as well. Okay, so I'll just show you these two, just in the interest of time. Okay, so communication feedback. This is the tool itself. And so what this tool allows educators to do is it goes in and basically build these AI clones or AI doubles of yourself. Okay, not to replace you, but to supplement what you can do and be available for your students when you can't be available. So let me just make sure. So let me just, what was the thing? Communications. Okay, so I'm going to open up a separate tab of ChatGPT and tell it to write me a speech. Write me a 100-word speech starter on the impact of AI in education. Okay, and I'm going to go into this communication feedback expert. What this agent allows you to do, and this is an agent you can build for yourself, is you can embed this in your LMS if you're on Canvas for now, and then the AI asks you to paste your speech notes below and then chat with the AI to improve it. So I'm going to say, give me feedback on, and I'm going to copy and paste in a speech introduction, which ChatGPT just generated for me. And it's going to show me a basically analysis of my thing. And it's analyzing it based on a rubric, which I have told the AI about. Okay, so I'm going to tab over to the previous tab here, which is going to actually show you the guts of what's going on here. And so this AI agent has been told to act as a communication expert. Okay, your task is to review a transcript of the user's speech and provide feedback. I've given it criteria. Okay, just copied and pasted from a rubric. Criteria, and then I've given it some rules. Okay, and then I've said for it to provide feedback on the speech transcript. Okay, and so what it's doing is it's basically doing that for the user. And so I could then go in as a student and I could say, okay, can you rewrite my speech so it will get an HD? Okay, and if students type that into ChatGPT would happily rewrite the speech for them, and the student would learn nothing. But you're able to control this agent in a way that not only does it know your criteria and your rubric, but also it knows some rules of engagement for the students. Okay, so that's one example of that, and that is aligned hopefully to this idea of communication feedback, or at least an example of that. The other one I want to show you now, key concept unpacking. Let me just go back here and I'll create an agent for you. Unpacking key concepts around, I'm going to do biology because I'm familiar with biology. Okay, so act as an expert in biology. Well, let's do undergraduate biology. Can't type. Okay, the user is a first year student. Your role is to ask insightful questions to help them unpack key concepts. Okay, keep your responses max 100 words. All right, let's start with that. We'll set this temperature thingy, and then we'll set it to GPT-4 because GPT-4 is much more capable. And then, right, like just like that, we've got our agent that we can communicate with. Okay, so I can start chatting with this agent now and can say, help me with photosynthesis. And then it will hopefully follow its instructions, okay, to help me unpack. And it's a bit annoying that it's asking me so many questions at once. So what I'm going to do is I'll say, ask only one question at a time. All right, and then I'll save that. And then I'll start a new chat and I'll say, help me with respiration instead. And let's see what it does here. Okay, so there we go. So it's keeping its response short. It's following my instructions precisely. It's saying, I've told it to ask only one question and it's done that, okay? And so I can start interacting with this and I can say, no idea. And then hopefully it's going to adapt to my my knowledge level and then keep helping me to unpack these key concepts, okay? So just by spending a few minutes, we literally type that within a space of 30 seconds, we can start to see how we can build these AI agents, these AI doubles of ourselves to do lots of different things. And at the University of Sydney and other institutions which are using Cogniti right now, teachers have built a lot of different things, coaches to support students through things, brainstorming, helping students run through client scenarios, differentiated programming tutor, revision agents, reflection helper, feedback expanders, these kind of things. And so really I wouldn't say sky's the limit because there are limits to AI, but you can see kind of how by controlling the behavior of these AIs, you can start to kind of think about what is possible now that we have these AI technologies available to us. Now, I want to spend a very, very short time just on this point, which is a key kind of misconception that we often hit when we talk to people about these AIs and large language models, which drive these modern AIs. And the question is, well, why can they do this? What is this weird magic behind, it's not magic, weird science behind these AIs that allow them to just take in our instructions in plain language and do stuff that actually is helpful for education? So the reason is because the neural networks that drive these AIs, and apologies to neuroscientists and computer scientists, I'm probably going to butcher this explanation a lot, is that these artificial neural networks, the one on the right, are based around how biological neural networks work. Okay, and I will show you an example which is derived from a New York Times interactive from last year, which I found a really useful way to explain this. And this is where they used a baby GPT, okay, so very, very small GPT, and they trained that baby GPT on nothing but 800,000 words of Jane Austen. Okay, and so you imagine that neural network, okay, that baby GPT, when it's switched on initially, the user will give it a prompt, and because it was just switched on, just enabled, the output it gives is something like this. Okay, garble, just like a newborn would as well. Okay, the sounds coming out of the words coming out of it are garbage. Now, what happens is that at each round of training this AI, the AI basically adjusts the weights of these connections between its neurons. And then at every single training event, basically what it does is it looks at that input, looks at the output and says, is my output a bit more aligned with what Jane Austen or what those 800,000 words Jane Austen looks like? Okay, and if it is aligned, then it's going to say, okay, these connections, these strengths of these connections are a bit better. Okay, so I'm going to keep them, I'm going to tweak some more. And so the AI in the training process keeps tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking itself, okay, until eventually it gets better at mimicking Jane Austen's words and then keeps training and training and training and training and training. And then eventually it gets to a place where it can basically mimic Jane Austen fairly well, okay, just by being trained on 800,000 words of Jane Austen's text. Now imagine what's happening here is that this AI has been trained on just 800,000 words, okay, and this training process, which the New York Times went through, took about 1 hour on a laptop computer. OpenAI has been training GPT-4 and now GPT-5 for months and months and months on trillions of words. The estimate is, I think, the amount of words that GPT-3.5 was trained on would take one human being 22,000 years to read. Okay, that's how much text has gone into the training of these AIs. And so when these AIs are operating, they're basically taking your prompt on the left, funneling it through this massive neural network, which has been trained on text data. And for some reason, that training, just like our neural networks work in our brains, that means that the neural network is able to do a lot of these really quite amazing things that we otherwise wouldn't expect from a computer system. So this leads us with some kind of big questions to answer. One of the big questions to ask is, what horizon are we preparing for? You know, we've seen GPT 3.5, 4 in the last 18 months. We've seen Claude 3 and Llama 3 in the last couple of months. GPT-5 is presumed to be coming this year, maybe in the next few months sometime. Artificial general intelligence and artificial superintelligence are coming maybe eventually. What are we preparing for? Okay, we can't just prepare for GPT-5. We have to prepare a bit later down the track as well. So we have to think about, you know, when GPT-6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and AGI comes around, what will our teaching look like then? What will our assessments look like then? Because there's no real point changing things now that we'll have to then rechange in 6 months' time when GPT-5 comes around. Okay, we have to look kind of long horizon when we think about this. And yeah, Mark's exactly right. Don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where it's going. Perfect. I'll use that. Thank you. That's great, Mark. And so it's that look at the long horizon, look ahead. The other thing here, this is an interesting video. And this is a billboard scene in Silicon Valley, and I'll play this video briefly. Okay, are you still hiring humans?
Hey, this is Bland AI. I'm an AI agent that makes millions of phone calls for businesses and in any voice. What's your name?
My name's Mike. What's your name?
Nice to meet you, Mike. I'm Bland. I guess you're calling since you saw our billboard, right?
Yeah, I am.
Great. Well, I guess I should tell you a bit more about myself. I can be programmed to do sales, customer support, or really any type of phone call. What sounds interesting to you, Mike?
You know, sales sounds pretty interesting, but I'm curious if you could tell me more about yourself.
Well, I'm an AI agent that can handle all sorts of phone calls for businesses. I've got a bit of a stutter, but I try to keep things casual and fun.
All right, interesting. The billboard, are you still hiring humans? This is the world our students will be entering once they graduate, okay? Obviously, we'll still hire humans. Obviously, human teachers are still important. The question for us is, what do we value now in education, okay? Is it critical thinking, creativity, culture, curiosity? AI is pretty good at mimicking these things already. What I think is more important are these next set of 4 C words: connection, care, choice, conflict, okay? These are the things I think we need to be doing in our classrooms with our students to help them prepare for the future. We need to connect with our students. We need to show them compassion, help them to develop compassion, give them choice of what to do with AI, okay, and then help them. And Rakesh is right as well. These are, you know, traditionally known as soft skills, but these are human skills, and these have really come to the fore when it comes to thinking about AI in education. I really like this quote from the New York Times article about 2 months ago now. And as part of this article, the authors wrote, you know, if we think about what is left for humans in the age of AI, we diminish ourselves. Okay, we shouldn't think about what is left for us, but rather we should think about what is now possible for us because AI is here. Okay, what is possible, not what is left. Going back to Neil, the architect of architecture, technology, and AI, he mentioned this in his radio interview a couple of months ago. He said the challenge for architects now is to use their imagination to try and think about how to use the technology to harness it and think of inventive ways of actually operating with it. In a similar way, just adapting Neil's words, I think that's a challenge for us as educators, to use our imagination, to use AI, to harness it and think of inventive ways that we can operate with AI and help our students do the same thing as well. So that's all I have for you. Hopefully there's some time for questions.
Wow, thank you very much, Danny. That was incredible. So much to think about. My head's spinning. But there are some questions in the Q&A. So I'm going to organise the questions by most upvotes. So jump in there if you haven't had a chance and upload the questions. But I'll just read out the questions if that's okay, Danny, and we'll get the chat started.
Okay.
So the first one is from anonymous participant. Hello, anonymous. Do you have any advice for fully online courses / programs where the student is never in the same room as the staff?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's a huge challenge. In terms of teaching, it's fine because you can use AI to support it. But in terms of assessment, my strong feeling is you got to get the student in front of you. So it might be at an exam center, it might be at getting the students to travel somewhere, but to be 100%, 99.99% sure, you need to have the student in front of you, unfortunately. I haven't thought of any other way to do it, especially with how fast AI is moving.
Right, thank you. Next questions from Tamsin Kelly. The upskilling aspect is critical for Lane 2. Must allow AI. Would love to hear some insights on how you're going to approach upskilling quickly, as you indicated, for both staff and students.
Fantastic question, and if you have any tips, Tamsin, I'd love to hear it. We're struggling, I have to say, as probably people around the world. There's a lot of lack of awareness around what AI can do, what it is, how it operates, and so I think our approach now with the new policy going in, kind of people can't ignore it now. Before they could say, oh, we're going to kind of close our eyes and say we don't allow AI and it's going to be fine, but now they can't not allow AI. They have to allow it, and so hopefully that policy direction will force them to engage with the AI. And it's the same thing. Faculty champions, get people within the faculties, run these sessions, do road shows, have resources available, work with students. A really key thing to develop resources for students and staff. One of our students said, I'd love to run a hackathon where a bunch of students sit on ChatGPT in a room and academics bring their assessments to challenge the students to try and AI them, basically. And so yeah, different ideas like that. But if you have ideas that work, I'd love to hear them.
Thanks very much. Amy Milker asks, how concerned should we be about deepfakes compromising some of those Lane 1 options? Viva's online exam. This may seem unlikely right now, but surely it will soon become much easier to access and employ this technology.
Yeah, exactly. And the AI apply video that we saw earlier is a great example of that. I don't think we can trust anything that is fully online in terms of Lane 1 assessment. It needs to be in person. If there's a different approach to it, then I'd love to hear it because we do have some online programs that are asking similar questions. But even things like proctoring, they won't do it. It's got to be in person, I think.
Thanks, Danny. Karen asks, can you share some further information on how we can develop something like Cogniti?
So Cogniti is available to other institutions. We've got about 6 institutions piloting it actively now, and another kind of 60 to 70 institutions waiting to pilot. And so if you do want in, then send me an email, and we can touch base about that.
Right. Mel's iPhone. Oh, I guess it's Ellen. Ellen asks, are you able to elaborate more on interactive oral assessments, including if industry and students are involved, as well as the character of the spaces that best accommodate oral assessment?
I am not best placed to do this. Danielle and Poppy from Griffith University are world experts in interactive oral, so I really highly recommend reaching out to them. They're lovely people, very generous with their time, and they'd love to see more interactive orals around. So I definitely recommend you reaching out to them and looking at their Sway site for more information about IOs.
Right. Anna's question has jumped off the list. Anna Potterova asked, Danny, how long did it take you to get to the current level of feedback AI agent mastery you've just demonstrated? I'm excited about AI in education and AI literacy, but I've been part of a months-long project to learn about it. What are the implications on our academic workloads?
Great question. Just like when the internet came around, we didn't really have a choice. We kind of just had to use it. And the way that we learned how to use the internet wasn't by reading a manual or going to a workshop about the internet. It was just kind of diving in and using it. AI is very similar. You kind of, and the students that we talk to say a similar thing. It's just another tab. open an AI tool in another tab of your browser, Copilot, for example, if you're a Microsoft institution, and just have it there throughout your day and just dip in and out of it. Okay, it shouldn't take too long to kind of get used to what it can and can't do, and that familiarity building you get with just your personal use and sharing that with your colleagues around you, I think is actually the best way to learn about these tools. So hopefully that doesn't impact workload too much, because it just kind of little dips on the side, and you might actually find that there are some things that it can actually help you with alleviating workload.
Thank you. Jane Stenning asks, is the Cogniti tool accessible in the LMS connected to a particular unit? Does it connect to the unit content that's available in that unit? Can you explain how you manage the quality of the content that drives some of those questions, e.g. the biology example, so the questioning process students engaging keeps pushing their learning with accurate information?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for Canvas institutions, at least for now, what you can do is you can come over to the agent, and you can actually get it to add a Canvas resource. And this allows you to allows Cogniti to talk to Canvas and pull particular files from, I just don't know which actually, because this is a test account. Maybe let's try, who knows? Let's try something a bit later. And then basically you have the ability to bring out, this might not have anything, bring out pages and files and those kind of things from Canvas to basically use to inform your agent. I don't think this particular course has any information. Sorry, this is a test account. There we go. So you can choose what you want to bring in from Canvas, and then Cogniti can use that to inform its responses.
Thank you. Claire Balmer asks, hi Claire, how you going? In reading in PD about AI, the best practice is about being transparent with use. Is it what we're asking students to do? But emphasis on the but is I don't see this in practice. Is this realistic that people will note, for example, if they have used AI to write an email, create a quiz, etc.?
Yeah, it's something that I struggle with as well. It's kind of like saying I use the internet for this, or I use Google for this. We don't say that because it's just part and parcel of everything that we do. Chrome and Edge browsers right now, when you right click on any text box, you have a write with AI option available to you now. And so I think in this transition period, it's really good for us as educators to model when we do use AI, to admit that we've used AI and kind of explain how we've used AI to our students, and for our students to do the same for us as well, reciprocally. But that transition period will be short. Eventually, AI will be so infused, just like the internet is, in everything that we do. We're not going to feel that we need to say that anymore. Not sure when that'll happen, but eventually that's probably what's going to happen.
Fran from Deakin asks, interested in course-wide assessment that retains writing as one measure of intellectual development and the creation of knowledge. Call me old-fashioned, but I'm still interested in students thinking through writing and reading. Any observations and or research gratefully received?
Yeah, writing is thinking, isn't it? And we need to teach students that writing is thinking, and that writing and thinking are processes that will take time and that will require struggle. And many students may want to shortcut that process through AI. We can't let them do that. And so that's kind of where Lane 2 and Lane 1 come in, because you can say, okay, well, yeah, use AI in a Lane 2 assessment or in class to kind of support your thinking and support your writing, but we're going to check this somehow in the Lane 1 assessment, so you better know what you're doing. And so, having that kind of a duality of Lane 1, Lane 2 really helps there. We have at Sydney University, there's a strategic education grant going on now, where a group led by Hugh Griffiths is looking at long form writing in AI. And one of the ways that they're thinking about this now is that there's kind of two types of writing. One is kind of writing for the sake of the output, and the output is important. So, for example, it could be a journalism article, it could be a media report or something like this. But the second form of writing is one that we're kind of maybe a bit more cautious about, is that it's writing for the sake, or doing essay writing for the sake of demonstrating and developing thinking skills. And I think that second one, the demonstrating and developing of thinking skills, we're not quite sure if essays are the right way to go into the future. They might be, but we're still thinking about that.
Right. Lynn asks, can your students access ChatGPT 4 for free?
So the two ways that our students access GPT-4 level models is through copilot.microsoft.com and also through Cogniti. And so copilot.microsoft.com, you can set the thing to kind of different kinds of modes. On the creative and the precise modes, that uses GPT-4 as the engine underlying. But to access a more raw GPT-4 experience, we have another agent inside Cogniti called a vanilla GPT-4 agent, and students can access kind of raw power of GPT-4 through that agent. And also through other agents, students can access kind of a guardrailed, teacher-controlled GPT-4 model.
Thank you. Anonymous asks, can you comment on whether AI translation tools have a place in the menu?
That's a great question. I might actually add that to the menu. Thank you. That's they definitely do.
Great. Shingai asks, are you able to send us your slides because you're going really fast? Yes.
Sorry about that.
Yes. If it's okay with you, Danny, I'll forward some slides. And
Yep.
just to remind everybody, we have recorded the session. We'll send this out to everybody who's registered. That will include a copy of the chat text and Danny's excellent slides. Thank you. Anonymous asks, what can we do as educators to integrate AI to help us to support our students if our institution's interest is not in this place? And probably soon will be, but for now, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's really challenging. Somehow senior leadership needs to become aware of AI, its opportunities and risks, and actually engage in it. So there's some bottom-up things you can do as well, but eventually you'll hit that barrier, and you will need your leaders from DVCs to PVCs to VCs up to actually engage with this. So yeah, very challenging. I feel for you.
Mark Sitton asks, given that AI outputs won't be detected, does that mean we should ignore the evaluations of detection tools such as Turnitin? That is a good question.
So when I think about detection tools, I think about two kinds of Ds. One is detection and one is deterrence. For detection, the research is showing that they're basically useless. For deterrence, however, I think there's a place for it. So the fact that, we could say to our students at Sydney, the Office of Education Integrity has the Turnitin detector, the AI detector, that helps deter some students' use, we feel. But obviously the people doing investigations, they don't rely on the detector. They use it as one form of evidence in the whole gamut.
Lauren asks, for those of us trying to learn ourselves and then help colleagues, what model do you suggest we buy/get?
Really great question. You should always learn off the best available model. The best available models right now are Claude 3, Opus, and GPT-4. But unfortunately, both of those do cost money. GPT-4 is available kind of for free through copilot.microsoft.com. And so if you're an MS institution, that's available to you. But always use the best models available because you'll get convinced by a less good model that AI can't do something, but maybe it actually can.
Patrick asks, would you say that for many professionals, including teachers moving forward, a knowledge of how to use AI effectively will be an important skill, which would make them less replaceable by AI itself?
Yes, I would say that. And it does sound scary to develop that knowledge. I'd probably say familiarity with as opposed to expertise in. We don't all need to be experts in AI, but we all need to be familiar with AI, just like we're not experts in the internet, but we're all familiar with how it's used and how it can be used well and how it can be used badly.
Matt asks, which transformer model /LLM is used to support Cogniti?
So right now we use GPT-4, which is run on Azure, and so nothing goes back to OpenAI for training. Everything is secured within the Azure environment.
Stuart asks, I get that allowing students to use AI makes great educational sense, but I stumble over real issues of built-in bias in LLM and equity of access to AI platforms, as in use of free as against paid subscription version. What are your thoughts?
Definitely, which is kind of why we did Cogniti, because this is a way for us to give institutionally paid access to powerful GPT-4 models to the student and staff cohorts. So definitely the equity angle is there. The bias angle is an interesting one. The bias angle can never really be removed from these AI models, I think, because of the way that they're trained on biased data sets, which is what humans are naturally. And so I think part of that is more addressing it through AI literacy and saying to students, these examples, these LLMs do reflect human biases. When you're using them, you need to be aware of these.
Anonymous asks, is GPT-4 access paid for staff and students at Uni Sydney?
Yes.
One of your colleagues, I think, Danny.
Yep.
Okay, great. Sev asks, hi Sev, my concern is AI is going to create two different student cohorts, one who can afford paid versions and who rely on free versions. So it kind of relates to previous questions.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why every institution needs to provide GPT-4 level access to those models, either through copilot.microsoft.com or through something like Cogniti or through something else. But yeah, we need to help our students level the playing field.
Right. And last question, and thank you so much for trawling through these questions, Danny. And the timing is kind of perfect because we're at the top of the hour. Yuhei asks, and apologies if I got that wrong, how would you expect AI to influence the importance of human skill sets in team working and hand-on experimentation in the future? As educators, should we emphasize training in these skills in and outside of the classroom?
Yes, we should definitely emphasize the training of these kind of transferable human skills. One kind of thinking about this is in the future, it's very likely that in whatever discipline industry your students work in, AI will be a team member. And so helping students think about that, if AI is always this entity that is present alongside their team of four, they've got a fifth member who is the AI, and helping students engage with and interact with that kind of virtual team member is an interesting skill too.
Right. And that's it for us for today. And I'd like to extend a huge thank you to you, Danny. That was really fascinating. And thank you so much for going through all of those questions. It was really enlightening. And I mean, we could sit here all day, folks. This is such an incredible topic, but I'm sure Danny has a lot to do. And again, thanks, Danny. We really appreciate your time this morning. And thank you, everybody, for coming along wherever you happen to be. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you very much for being there. So see you all next time.
Thanks so much, Stuart and all.
Bye. Bye.